was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape.
Yes. Welcome, friends, to the Fantasy Empire. A little more music for you. Bonus music.
Bonus track.
Chrissy V complained about what this looked like on air. If you're listening on the podcast, you're probably not going to notice anything different except a saltier Chris Vaccaro. But if you're watching on air, you'll notice that the boxes look weird. It's because Vaccaro wanted to do it the way Theo did. And now it's all weird because I'm much closer to my computer than he is because he lays back. I mean, I guess I could go back like this and hold the microphone for the whole show. If
Nobody cares, Nando. Nobody cares.
Anyway, welcome everybody to week 13. Remember when week 13 used to mean something, Chris?
Week 13 still means everything, Nando. It's crazy. Here we are.
Well, it's because you're having a mediocre season.
The weeks get bigger and bigger as we go along here. And that is the smallest, tiniest cup I've ever seen right there, Nando. That you're
called
drinking.
espresso.
Is that your kid's cup or something like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, the weeks get bigger and bigger. It's a critical week 13 here in fantasy football for all of us. You got 2 weeks left in the regular season. A lot of us need to win out these last 2 weeks or put up some good points to make the playoffs. And the pressure mounts, Nando. So here we are.
Boring intro that was. Yeah, all right. What a bland way to introduce the show.
Joey Brown, you're right. It's crunch time at week 13. And can you believe, Nando, week 13 and the NFL has the goal to put 6 teams on a bye in week 13 for us fantasy players? I think don't even care about us.
The NFL as a whole, I think, appreciates fantasy. So I think they're doing this just for strategy. I think they know exactly what they're doing. Let's throw a bone to fantasy people.
Well, that's your first ridiculous comment of the show. Many more to come, I'm sure. But yeah, they want us to play strategy. That's why
When are we gonna have our Christmas dinner?
Around Christmas time, but it's still November. The last time I checked. So
I mean, really, it's like 3 weeks till Christmas.
I'm just saying it's November. So.
Hey, can we talk fantasy football and help people, please?
Let's do that.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Jalin Hyatt and how he's on a bye. Hey, but for real, would you drop him?
Would I drop? What do you mean?
Is he one of those guys you hold through the bye? I'm doing mass cuts this week because I have to.
Nando,
all the players seem to be on bye.
Let me stop you there. Jalin Hyatt. You mean, would you pick him up now going into week 13, even though he's on a bye week? And the answer to that is yes.
Okay, fine. It's the same question.
No, really, you said it the opposite way. But
I know I'm in leagues that have Jalin Hyatt on rosters.
Okay, yeah, I do too. But for the majority of leagues, he's available. So even at the high stakes level, a lot of my leagues, I still see him sitting on the waiver wire. And I think he'll be one of the top 5 ads this week, even though, they're on a bye week and you can't use him. Now, there's a caveat to that. You might get away with sneaking him in as an under-the-radar cheap buy with 2 weeks to go because most teams are in a position to go to the waiver wire with 6 teams on the bye again and fill in pieces for them to operate this week in a critical week 13. The only people that really could take this chance and add them are teams that are locked into their playoffs. They know they're going to the playoffs. These last 2 weeks, they're just playing out the string. And those are the type of teams and owners that can make a move like that. I'm doing it in a couple of my leagues that I know I'm going to the playoffs. Let me add Jalin Hyatt here. And we see it every year. Rookie wide receivers late in the season come on strong. And, this was the first game he really popped, though, Nando, with the 5 for like 110. Maybe the Giants receiving core, they're finally like, all right, listen, it's the end of the year. Let's make this guy our top target here as we go into the next, into next year. So we see if this kid is a legit top 2 wide receiver that we could rely on going for the future. So maybe these last 5 weeks, maybe him and Tommy DeVito have some connection here. And he's a useful maybe flex player for those championship weeks of like week 14 through 17.
I hate what you've made us do with these boxes.
Okay, switch it around to whoever you.
You know what? Because I want you happy, and I know you get distracted if it's not.
No, I don't even. I don't mind it either.
Hey, look, I would like to talk.
There you go.
Oh, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. That was Tyler in the back end.
That was me, actually. I have control. You don't even know that.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Change the background real quick then for everybody. I'd like to see that.
Back to football.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about Kyren Williams, but I don't think there's any context in which we can talk about him. Because what do you what advice can we give about it? Okay, he's great. Moving on.
No, we have to talk about Kyren Williams and that unbelievable 38.3 performance PPR.
Why?
Points. Well, let me ask you this, Nando. It's not a discussion of do you play him or whatever. To get a player like Kyren Williams back into your fantasy lineup, it's a league-winning play now going forward. And my question to you would be this: other than Christian McCaffrey, think about the fantasy running backs that we have, and the whole landscape of them. Where would you place Kyren Williams? And I don't want to overreact to this huge 1 week performance, but
it wasn't.
You have a running back like this that's getting it done. Yeah. Oh no, he was a monster all year long early in the season until he got hurt. We haven't had him for about 4 or 5 weeks now. He comes back and he drops this type of game, but it's the way they used him, right? 17 carries, 143 yards. And then he's a running back, that catches balls out of the back. 6 catches for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's doing it. He's one of the few backs that you can rely on here, rushing and receiving. So my question to you is, thinking right off the top of your head, besides Christian McCaffrey, where would you place Kyren Williams rest of season that you would want? What running backs would you want outside of McCaffrey over Kyren Williams?
Right, I get what you're asking, but I don't understand how that helps a fantasy player at all.
It doesn't.
You can't trade right now.
It's just a discussion, Nando. It's usually what you do. That I'm just.
I wouldn't bring. Well, no, this is what you do. Let's bring up a top 3 guy. You're right. Okay, I'll play your game.
Play my game.
I would go Christian McCaffrey, and I'll even open it up. I would go Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Kyren Williams next year. Then Justin Jefferson.
Okay, forget it.
Then Dalvin Cook.
Good. Dalvin Cook. Perfect.
How would you do that? All
right. The question was running backs, Nando.
All right. So why can't I? But I mean, why would you just shut it down?
Why would we talk about next year?
If you're talking about a first round next year,
we're talking rest of the season here. Would you take Travis Etienne over him rest of season?
No, I actually subscribe to the Dearness Johnson school of working him in.
Would you take Bijan Robinson?
I don't think anyone would, right?
Would you take Alvin Kamara?
No, I'm viewing Kyren Williams as
So you have him as RB2. Is that what you're saying, Nando?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was well on his way to that before he got hurt.
He was the top 5 fantasy running back. So now that he's back and healthy, I think that's where I would have him. I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was putting all these running backs up against him, and they all come with some flaws. Travis Etienne has fallen off now, and he got the chest injury. And like you said, we've talked about Dearness Johnson on this show now for 3 weeks.
Well, we talked about it years ago.
And he's getting more piece of the pie every week in this Jacksonville offense. So it's not like, that we're getting the Travis Etienne of weeks 1 through, 8, where he's just pumping out 25 fantasy points every week and he's 95% of the backfield. Dearness Johnson comes in now, and last week, I believe he got 7 carries. So maybe they're trying to take a lot of wear and tear off of Etienne as they go down the stretch. So, that's I would have Kyren Williams over him. That's for sure. Alvin Kamara, he's fallen off a little bit too. Even DeAndre Swift, who a lot of players, we all loved him. He's starting to fall off a little bit. So, hopefully this continues for Kyren Williams and he gets this workload. Obviously, it's not going to be 38 points, fantasy points a game, but he's in a perfect role in this Rams offense to do it, rushing and receiving and touch the ball 20 times a week here. Rachaad White's another one. Rachaad White's another one, Nando. That's he's coming on strong, but no, I don't think Rachaad White belongs in this discussion.
You gonna just talk to Joey Brown like that?
So I just don't see it. Rachaad White, he just doesn't get it done on the ground enough for me to get the opportunities enough. But
what about Rashad Penny?
Rachaad White's definitely an RB1. The rest of this season, he's a top 12 every week.
Is Chase Edmonds not going to happen?
Nah, it's not.
I thought he would.
I thought he would contribute more in that offense, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. He gets his handful of touches every week, and then that's it.
Here's a big question for Chrissy V. Where's Raheem Mostert now?
Wow. So Raheem,
I know
Mostert,
you hate him, and it really bothers you.
It's not that I know the Mostert. We touch on that. I feel like every week on this show, and I get a lot of hate replies in the article every week about Raheem Mostert, and it seems like I'm poo-pooing him.
It does,
Nando, but I'm just keeping it.
Doesn't seem
real.
like it. You objectively are.
Nando. Here's the thing. Last week versus the Jets, that Black Friday game. Here's the facts, man. Jeff Wilson was outplaying him, out touching him, the whole game. Raheem Mostert, until the second half, midway through the third quarter, where he scores the touchdown, he was sitting on 1 or 2 fantasy points midway through the third quarter, and he was barely touching the ball. He had 8 carries. He's not catching the ball out of the backfield lately. It's just a situation where you could see Mostert on any week going forward here. And this was without Devin Etienne in the lineup, that Jeff Wilson was looking better than him.
Yeah.
So I hate to say, to all the Raheem Mostert owners out there, because, I'm getting it thrown back in my face, because at the end of the day, these last 3 weeks, the fantasy points are there. But if you're watching the game and you see the flow, there's a good chance that Raheem Mostert gives you a 3-point week at any given time going forward here. Am I wrong or no? Nando?
Well, no. You know what? This is the mistake you made when you tweeted gleefully that he sucks that week.
No, I didn't say he sucks. I said
he has big fourth quarters.
Days of RB1 is over, of an elite RB1 are over. And it's a fact. It's not.
But that was because he didn't have a good game through 3 quarters, and then he blows up in the fourth quarter. I wonder what Raheem Mostert's fourth quarter stats look like.
You're talking about the game overseas versus the Chiefs, where he did basically nothing the whole game. And then, he broke off 3 big 20-plus yard runs and got a touchdown. And at the end of the day, he had 16 fantasy points.
Yeah.
It got saved late. Versus the Jets here, he breaks the long touchdown run in garbage time, or else he's at 11 or 12 fantasy points again. I get it. The end results is there, but he's bordering on the line of a 5-point week. And now Devin Etienne is going to come back. Jeff Wilson looked good enough where he's not going to be inactive. It's going to be a 3-man backfield. Raheem Mostert is not a top 6 or 8 fantasy running back anymore. And that's all I'm saying. So that's the Mostert story, Nando. If I want to be wrong, trust me, I have Raheem Mostert in 2 really big leagues, 2 really big playoff teams. I've loved them all year long, but I'm worried. It's just not going to happen the rest of the season, I don't think. I'll tell you this much. I have a playoff team, Nando, that is blessed at the running back position. It has David Montgomery, Travis Etienne, Kyren Williams, and Raheem Mostert.
Wow.
Going forward, Nando, I don't even think about it. Raheem Mostert's on my bench. He's my 4th running back there out of those 4 guys.
Well, when you frame it like that, yeah.
All right, I get it. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, in terms of people that think he's a locked-in top 6 or 8 fantasy running back, to me, he's not going forward. That's it.
So Mostert, it's safe to say, he's got a floor that's probably deeper than most, and a ceiling though that could be as high as the blinds behind you.
There you go, Nando.
Okay, great.
Perfectly said.
That's a fair way to put it. You wanted to talk about how boring last week was. I'd like to grant you that.
Nando, that was you, buddy. That was in
but you said let's lead with how boring.
All these questions to all our listeners, all these questions that Nando does the rundown, so he might throw it on me. But if you don't like the topics, people, blame Nando. At Defino. Yeah, at Defino.
Or drop something in the chat. We'll just
email him or drop it in the chat, But no, it was. I
was told not to put any questions up from Uncle Ted today. That was all.
Yeah, okay. Nando.
Just kidding, Uncle Ted. We love you, man.
It was a boring week 12 in the sense that, and I'll tell you why, Nando. There was only 6 1 p.m. games, right? And they all stunk other than that Jacksonville Texans game, which was pretty exciting. But we had that 10-7 Giants Patriots stinker. The Texans,
that poor rookie.
Yeah, the Titans and the Titans and
whoever, right? Just Titans suck, man.
No, the Titans and the Panthers.
You got to put Malik Willis back in.
Oh, God, no. Titans and the Panthers game. So, listen, we had the 3 Thanksgiving games. We had the extra game on Friday, as we talked about, the Black Friday game. And then you get to Sunday, and it's a bad slate of 1 p.m. games. There's only 6 of them. It seems really slow when there's only 6 games compared to the usual, 8 or 9 at 1 p.m. So the 1 p.m. games were really slow, but we did get bailed out at 4 p.m. with an unbelievable Bills Eagles game. So that kind of saved the day. And then even the Sunday night and Monday night games stunk. So you're right. It was a pretty boring week 12 watch, but now going forward, hopefully we're in line for some exciting games.
Does Patrick Taylor need to be on everybody's radar?
Cheap ad. Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Cheap
well,
ad.
Look,
Nando, how do we start the show? How do we start the show and not talk about the biggest topic in fantasy, and that's Jonathan Taylor's injury, along with Zach Moss, and what this does to fantasy managers. And again, I know you're Mr. Oh, let's not talk about the biggest topics in fantasy.
No, it's more like what's the advice?
The smallest ones.
What advice are you going to give someone? Unless you're going to say don't start Zach Moss.
It's a topic. It's a strategy topic, Nando, because guess what? We don't know as fantasy managers. This is a gigantic shift in fantasy teams going into the playoffs, Nando, and down the stretch these last 2 weeks for 0 RB builds, Nando, and teams that held on to Zach Moss, and you should have held on to Zach Moss. Obviously,
you should have held on to him. Yeah, your whole bench should be running backs.
And you're right. I stashed 6-7 running backs on every team on my benches. And when you can look down at this point of the season and take a Zach Moss off your bench, who was basically fading to oblivion, right? This last month now with Jonathan Taylor, to the point where people were cutting him, okay, in leagues and or at least thinking about it in deeper leagues because he was giving you nothing. To take a Zach Moss off your bench and slide him basically into your RB1 spot here. So if you have good RB depth here and you had one good running back and you were trying to make do with your RB2 spot that a lot of people do, and now you take a Zach Moss and put it in, your team just became a powerhouse for weeks 13, 14, and 15. Now this Jonathan Taylor injury, Nando, the surgeries today on his thumb, and they say 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, but a lot of these fantasy doctors say it's a 5-week injury, and that Irsay really is talking out of his ass with this 2 to 3 week timetable. So if you're a Jonathan Taylor manager, you're going into the playoffs, right? There's been some talk about, do you hold him? Do you drop? Let's put that to bed. You absolutely hold him, because the worst mistake you can make is dropping a Jonathan Taylor because you think it's a 4 or 5 week injury and you don't want to keep him for the playoffs. And then you look up in the start of the playoffs in week 15 and he's back in your lineup. But as for Zach Moss owners, we're hoping that's not the case. I don't own much Jonathan Taylor. I own a good amount of Zach Moss here, Nando. So I'm hoping for this latter, because this takes your teams to another level, in my opinion. Let's look at Zach Moss' schedule going forward. This week, he's got the Titans, who he destroyed earlier in the season. He had a huge game against them. And I don't think the Titans' run defense is what we all looked as a fantasy community as early in the season. Okay, they can be had. And now he's going to be an 80%, or more touch running back out of the backfield, snap share. And he can catch the ball. On top of that, he's shown all year long. Okay. The Titans in week 13, he gets the Bengals defense that everyone's carving up in week 14. Okay. And the first week of the fantasy playoffs, he gets the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Who they could be ran on. Okay. Now, if you're lucky enough to get an extra week, which I think I'm under the impression we don't see Jonathan Taylor until at least week 16 or 17, if that. Okay. So these are the big 4 critical weeks of getting Zach Moss. And in week 16, you get the Falcons. Okay. So I look at Zach Moss here, Nando, as a top 8-12 fantasy running back for the next 4 weeks here, and I think he's I think he takes teams to another level.
I've seen some buzz on Trey Sermon. Now, so I think so. If we follow your logic and say this is a 4-week Zach Moss thing, wouldn't the move be absolutely go get Trey Sermon now too? Because if something happens to Zach Moss, he's just the next guy in an offense where, like you said, like you're talking about 80% of the carries. That's the system. That's not really like we've seen what Zach Moss looks like without Jonathan Taylor already, and it's not like, hey, we're going to split it with a couple of guys. It's like Zach Moss is Jonathan Taylor basically. Not the talent level, but the role. So
no doubt.
So you would also probably say like, hey, Zach Moss breaks a rib this week. Trey Sermon's the next guy up, and he had 5 carries last week in an overtime game.
It's 100% a small ad to put on the back of your bench as an RB7 because you never know what can happen. And this is the type of this is when you look at your bench. You don't drop the Rico Dowdells, the Zeke Elliott's, the Eli Mitchells, right? Even like a Michael Carter in Arizona now. These are the guys you want to have on your bench. Okay, they're one hit away. I say it every week to you, Nando. One hit away, just like Jonathan Taylor. It's popped up. This
never said that before, though.
Out of nowhere. 100%. I say it every week. All these running backs, they're you pretty much useless pieces on your bench every week, and you stare at them, and then you're tempted to drop them. But then a Zach Moss issue happens just like this. It can happen on any other team. Oh, Jonathan Taylor out of nowhere yesterday morning.
Out of nowhere.
Surgery. Yeah. He finished the game. And even the beat reporter was like, I was interviewing him in the locker room after the game. He said nothing and everything was fine.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we wake up yesterday morning and it's, sound the alarms. So, listen, this is the type of season. And these are the moves that happen every year, Nando. 1 or 2 teams, a running back emerges. Okay. The waiver wire is barren. I don't even want to do waivers this week. It's so ugly. I look at all my high stakes teams and I look at the waiver wire and I'm so glad that whatever leagues I had money available in a couple weeks ago, I blew it all on Keaton Mitchell. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm laughing at the teams now that there's 2 weeks left in the fantasy regular season and teams that have a lot of money, what are you spending it on? There's nothing available on the waiver wire at any position. So, you're just sitting there with a bag full of money and there's nobody to spend it on. So
let me stop you right there, friend. Let me play a sound effect and then play our commercial, and then I'll play another sound effect and we'll come back and we'll answer a couple questions. We got some comments. What sound effect do you want to do?
Just whatever one you want. Don't do that horn, stupid. Don't do that stupid horn.
There's something called oof. You want to try that?
Just
all right, stand by. We'll be right back after you play a sound.
Oh, I see it every day online, every single day. Hey, that looks like a great fantasy team in an 8-team league. Oh, wish I could be in a league with you, right? Well, guess what? Now you can respond with, sure, let's play on Bettle. That's the beauty of this platform. This new Bettle platform standardizes all position scoring. So you just load your team and you challenge your friend, your colleague, Twitter troll, and you can browse other teams and issue challenges. Bettle is revolutionizing fantasy football. And with code UNDERWORLD, you get a $100 instant deposit match plus a free $10. So even if you deposit $20, you get $50. Think about that. So go to Bettle.com. The code is UNDERWORLD. Bettle.com. The code is UNDERWORLD. Or click a link in the description. It's fun to be right.
Yeah, you're gonna get so much.
We should probably not do oof again. Yeah,
you're gonna get an email
about what
from the higher ups about you continuously hitting the same button all the time and the repercussions of it.
That's not.
You do.
Let me tell you something. You hit it once.
You
hit it once, and it plays several times on a loop, and it's got to play while I look for the commercial, and then I hit the commercial, and then I come back down. Oh, whatever. Let's answer some questions. How about that? Adam, just got offered to send away Chase. And how does he still have a trade deadline?
Chase
just got offered to send away Chase and Dell from Mahomes and Puka. Do I accept? He's 7-5 in a non-PPR.
My team's Keenan Allen, Dell, Chase, Kyren, Kelsey, bench, Ridley.
Chase and Dell from Mahomes. I would never do that.
No,
unless it's a super flex.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, 12-man PPR. It's not a non-PPR. It's 12-man PPR.
You know, it's funny. Jamar Chase and Tank Dell were two receivers. Would you, if I offered you my Tank Dell for your Jamar Chase right now, would you take it?
No.
Who would you rather have rest of the season?
I think I'd rather have Jamar Chase.
Question. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not. I don't think it's crazy at all.
It's not crazy. It's not crazy at all, Nando. And that's why, I actually had that question. It's funny that that listener put that question up there with Chase and Dell, because I actually have that down thinking about it rest of season. Because to me, Tank Dell is a top 12 wide receiver 1 rest of the season. That's, I don't know. I think he's going to be on a ton of championship teams this year. I think that's the one receiver you can see, making a lot of people a lot of money. And rest of season, I don't know. It sounds crazy when you throw the names up there. Jamar Chase versus Tank Dell, Yep. Tank Dell was basically an 18th round draft pick. People were just throwing on the bench. But, this is what happens in fantasy football. We see things come out of the blue. And Tank Dell right now in this CJ Stroud high-powered Texan offense is the wide receiver 1 on the team. And, he's just consistent every week long. And I don't know. I'd rather have the CJ Stroud Tank Dell attachment going forward than Jake Browning with Jamar Chase, I think. I think it's very close, but it's not a crazy question, right?
I think Jake Browning, this feels like the roles are reversed here. Like, this is like usually I will ask you that question. You're like, this is the stupidest question you've ever asked in 7 years of us doing a show together. Tank Dell is a rookie and Noah Brown could pop every week. And the Jamar Chase is like, are you kidding me? Why am I even answering this question?
No, you're right. It is a Nando. It sounds
like
a
text,
Nando question.
Yeah, it does. And then I'll get a text like, you are an idiot. Like letter U, letter R.
Usually I'm right when I text you that thing, but that's a legit question. Tank Dell versus Jamar Chase. Your question would be like Matt Breida or Dalvin Cook rest of season. Like
it's a legitimate question. I mean, like if you're filling out a bench full of running backs, which handcuff is the better one to have? That's actually a good question. You should be asking yourself. Like I would rather have Matt Breida.
If you're the Breece Hall and the Saquon Barkley owner, it's a good time to throw those.
Even if you're not,
as you're an RB, an RB7, or even not down the stretch. Sure, Nando, I'll give you that.
See, you just came up with a good question, making fun of me.
And there you go, Nando. If I told you to tell me is Mike Evans having a good or bad season, and is Chris Evans is Chris Godwin having a good or bad season, what would you tell me?
I would say I think the expectations are too high for you to say either of them are having they're just not having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin seasons, I guess. But it's kind of nice that they're not completely dropping off. They're kind of like slowly declining.
Let me save you from embarrassing yourself as usual.
I got them both.
Mike Evans is having a great season, and Chris Godwin is having a terrible season.
What are the game logs?
Okay. Now let me throw these.
You can't just add it up and be like they're great. Like if they're frustrating on a weekly basis, then I would consider that a bad season.
Mike Evans targets this year 91. Yeah. Chris Godwin's targets 82. Okay, so they're very close. Mike Evans catches. Tell me how many catches Mike Evans has.
Let's say 78.5.
Oh God. Mike Evans has 54 catches this year, and Chris Godwin has 53 catches this year. Okay,
it's great.
But when you talk about these two wide receivers, like I just brought up, you have Mike Evans being looked at as having an unbelievable year, and Chris Godwin having a terrible year. Right? That's just the facts of the way the fantasy community looks at it. Mike Evans has 850 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. Chris Godwin has 605 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. That's the difference between Godwin being basically a flex play and Mike Evans being a wide receiver 1, even though their targets and receptions are basically the same. That's how crazy of a difference their
Mike
yards.
Evans has. I knew I wasn't crazy. Mike Evans has 4 games with 50 or fewer yards this season. He's gone over 100 yards twice. I mean, I know he's getting touchdowns. That's fine.
9
you can't depend on
touchdowns,
touchdowns.
Can't.
But I mean, like you can't. I mean, all right, fine.
Consistently
Can you
in
be
the
like,
end
all right,
zone. Every week he's consistently in the end zone. 9 touchdowns. He's basically a top 12 wide receiver for the season. 850 yards and 9 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Chris Godwin can't get any of the love every week. Chris Godwin had that one really good game in Buffalo on a Thursday night, and where he scored his lone touchdown. And every week he's been a disappointment to the fact that the fantasy community is like, what do we do with Godwin every week going forward? Every week we can't live with these 7 or 8 fantasy points that he seems to just produce. Every week it just seems like he's a 5 for 50 or a 4 for 40 type wide receiver. So at some point this has to, level out, in my opinion, where Godwin starts putting together these, 20-point fantasy games. Because right now, even though their targets and catches are on par with each other, they're viewed very, very differently. So hopefully that turns around.
I stand by my assessment that they're not having.
Yeah. Okay. You had Mike Evans.
They're not having the seasons that we wanted from either.
Yeah. Good job with that one.
Oh, well, why would you ask that question then? Like, it's like you're making a big deal out of 92. Like, 92 targets. Guess how many catches? That's usually a very high number when you phrase it like that.
I'm just saying it's the way we look at the 2 of these Bucs receivers, that Evans is having a great year, which he is, and Godwin's having a terrible year. But when you look at the numbers, they're very close. It's weird. You would think like Evans has like 95 targets and Godwin has like 55 or 60, and the Evans has like 20 more catches than Godwin, but they're tied basically. It's just the yards and the touchdowns. It's drastic.
Let me ask you this, though.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that they're both not having great seasons? And look at it like,
why are you saying that?
Look at it like Mike Evans has those 9 touchdowns. I guess you're right. If he's hitting in the end zone, he's a bigger end zone guy.
Yeah, you're all.
No, it makes sense. It's just like I'm playing
only
chess,
to you. It makes sense,
and you're playing Jenga. Yeah. Let's go to Kenny State Trill.
Yeah, please move on because you don't even know what you're saying anymore.
I do know what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like Mike Evans to me is a 1,400-yard guy, and he's not on that pace.
Kenny wants to drop.
He's got 40-yard games this year. That's all. Should I drop Mixon and pick up Moss? Full PPR. I have Eckler, Mixon, JT, and Bijan.
I would 100. Well, I mean, listen. There's no dropping Joe Mixon, but I would 100% rather have Zach Moss going forward than Joe Mixon. 100%.
Who's the better rookie? I had this up for Uncle Ted earlier. Who's the better rookie? You like Puka or Tank Dell?
I mean, listen, flip a coin. They're both great. That's
All right. Well, thank you for that great answer. You really helped.
It's the truth. So
Rushman just says greetings. Look at that muscle. That's not
awesome.
his though. It looks like someone else's avatar.
Moving on, Nando.
The point that I'm making is the way you phrase these questions are very confusing. And Don's right, man. We need a relationship counselor.
Yeah.
We should get Joel on here. You texted me privately and said you thought it was messed up Joel Pinheiro came to New York and didn't want to hang out with us.
Yeah. Okay, Nando.
I remember when you said that.
Shout out to Joel. He was at the Dolphins-Jets game, and you actually said that to him, and then he ignored you because
I know
you were drunk. You were drunk texting him annoying stuff at like 3 a.m. So,
I wasn't drunk.
Yeah. Listen, how great is it this year being a Keenan Allen and Tyreek Hill manager, Nando? And the best part about having these 2 guys, Nando, is that they're both going for records. So you don't have to worry about, these 2 slowing down the stretch as their quarterbacks try and get them, Tyreek Hill to 2,000 yards and Keenan Allen to the all-time catch record in a season. So these are the type of fantasy players and situations that you dream of in a season, going straight through the championship week of week 17 here. In my opinion, if you remember back when Michael Thomas was going for that catch record with Drew Brees, just every week he was automatic, just pounded 9, 10, 11 catches. Keenan Allen is an absolute dream, isn't he? 14 catches this past week.
And what your fantasy players do with Keenan Allen?
No,
since they've come here for advice.
Yes, listen, I'm just saying, league winning. These two, it's going to be fun down the stretch watching these two, put up their numbers as their quarterbacks feed them. That's all I'm saying. That Chargers offense, though, Nando, I'm not giving up on Gerald Everett. I'm sorry, I'm pounding the table.
You sunk me at Gerald Everett a couple times.
Say it again.
Like, I listened to you about Gerald Everett and put him in lineups because I'm like, you know what? Chris Vaccaro's right a lot more than he's not. Let me get Gerald Everett as my tight end this week. And then we've had some downs.
And then some weeks he doesn't give you anything and he gets hurt and he leaves the game early. And then this past week he scores a touchdown, catches a couple balls, and he's a top 10 tight end. So listen, you look at this Chargers offense, Nando, and I don't know when Josh Palmer's coming back. Okay, there's still no word on that off of IR. I don't think he's going to be ready when he's first eligible to
Does it matter? Does it matter? Like, Josh Palmer, is he really like? I feel like we do this every year, again and again and again, and every year Josh Palmer.
No, Josh Palmer was playing very well and getting and playing a good role as a wide receiver too before he got.
We have different definitions of very well, I think. Yeah.
Jalin Hyatt got 5 targets this week. He's just not doing much with them. Okay, Donald Parham disappeared from this offense. It looked like Gerald Everett, again, when healthy, took over the lead role as a tight end. There's just a path to Gerald Everett being a weekly top 6 or 7 tight end the rest of the season here. If this offense, Quentin Johnson is useless. Okay, there's just nothing there. So unless Keenan Allen is going to catch 15 balls every single week, Gerald Everett is that type of move you need to be making. And I'm only bringing it up because at this point of the season, with nothing being really available on the waiver wire, I actually see Gerald Everett on a lot of my waiver wires. And there's not that many players that you can go and see a path to being fantasy relative and actually helping your team win than a player like Gerald Everett, especially at the tight end position. Maybe Pat Freiermuth, was forgotten about and dropped. And then he had the big week last week out of nowhere, 8 catches, 120 yards. And I know you wanted to talk about that Pittsburgh offense. We'll get to it in a minute. But, players like Gerald Everett.
Don't worry about me.
It's a high-powered Chargers passing offense, okay? Eckler looks like a stiff now. Eckler has completely fallen off. He doesn't look right. That high ankle sprain is still bothering him, I think. He doesn't show the speed and the explosiveness that he once had. Okay. There's just got to be something else in this offense. And I'm still putting my money on Gerald Everett being that second guy after Keenan Allen in the pass game in a lot of these weeks going forward.
Do you feel like maybe Eckler's contract had something to do with it? Like, he got paid. He's like, all right, cool. See you.
No.
This happens. It happens. It happened with Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think money is the reason why, this happened. He's fighting to get back on the field and play and fight through an injury. And you hear about it every single year with players that suffer a high ankle sprain early in the season. Yeah, they come back. Okay. But what happens in the offseason? You hear, I never felt right. I fought through it. I played at 60% of myself. That's what you're going to hear from Eckler. You're going to hear about that in this offseason. I just never felt right. Took the offseason to get back. In July and August, when he's in camp, he's going to say, thank God I'm over it now. I feel great. But I never was right last year after the high ankle sprain. And that's what he's fighting through now. So, when you draft Austin Eckler in the top 5 overall, you're expecting 25, 30-point fantasy games. But that's just not happening right now. And you see Josh Kelly getting some carries each week. They're probably going to limit Eckler to 10 or less carries every week because they know internally about the high ankle sprain affecting him. So they're probably going to take more off his plate in the run game. And he's going to have to get it done with 5 or 6 catches every week. And unless he scores, he's basically RB2 territory. So that's my
like
Chargers update. You know what's crazy, Nando? Not
What?
to jump topic, but I did see it in our chat, and it's funny because I wrote about this in my article this week. Was the
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys
Did it
offense
very early.
I did. I wrote it a night early.
Why? What are you doing tonight? It's so important.
I'm taking my niece to the New York Rangers game, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that started out sweet and then got selfish.
She wanted to go to a hockey game. Anyway, Nando, this Dallas offense, which is, exploding, these last couple of weeks, and sure, the schedule has worked out nicely for them, but the missing piece in this offense, I think, is the emergence of Brandon Cooks. Okay. And Brandon Cooks, I think, has now worked himself into legit wide receiver 3 territory, maybe even wide receiver 2 territory going forward for your fantasy team, where early in the season, he was pretty much irrelevant. You can forget about Michael Gallup. The tight end Ferguson is just a complimentary piece. But in this pass game, Nando, Brandon Cooks has now figured out his role and is a nice complimentary piece to CD Lamb. And Brandon Cooks is going to have these weeks. A couple weeks ago, he had 10 catches, 170 yards, blow-up game versus the Giants. You saw on Thanksgiving, 4 catches for 72 and a touchdown. He would be locked into my fantasy lineups now going forward as a nice wide receiver 3. So another guy that's coming on late in the season here that you probably just had on your bench and you couldn't use, but now is in your fantasy lineup going forward.
It's crazy that Julio Jones is like on a team, right? And he's just doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, you're definitely helping our listeners talking about Julio Jones.
Well, you're talking about Brandon Cooks, you're talking about the Cowboys, and I was, I was thinking about
No, you just get on me because of fantasy. Oh, you're talking about Keenan Allen, and how do you help him? And then you want to bring up Julio Jones for the 3 weeks in a row.
George Pickens on a lot of benches. It looks like the Steelers in a 1-game sample post the Canada firing.
Yeah,
they seem to have you put up 400 yards out of nowhere for like the first time in a decade. You got to take notice of that. Yep. Everyone kind of made fun of him, like we're going to have one guy calling the plays and one guy coordinating, whatever, but like it worked. Mm-hmm. Is this? Are they fixed, or was it just one game where like, all right, like Matt Canada's not here anymore?
Huge upgrade.
Matchup.
Huge upgrade in the play calling. No doubt about that. I have a lot higher expectations going forward for Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Kenny Pickett took some shots downfield. Yeah. And now you look up, and after putting 400+ yards of offense on the board versus the Bengals defense, now they get an even bigger treat this week versus the Cardinals defense coming to town. I think all Steelers this week are must plays.
Whoa! Both running backs.
Both running backs. No doubt. One of them is going to be a top 10 running back this week. I think this could be the week that Najee Harris blows up. But it's tough. It's tough because every week they're really doing a good job, the Steelers, of making the backfield a 50-50 split. And they're both useful. And Warren produces more, but Harris is usually the one that gets in the end zone. So at the end of the day, their fantasy points pretty much equal out. I would still love to see Warren be like 70% of the backfield to Harris's 30. I just don't think that's going to happen. But in this matchup, I would start all Steelers. I think George Pickens is just about ready to blow up and have the explosion week that we haven't seen in a long time from him. I'm calling, a 6 for 125 yards and a touchdown or 2 for George Pickens this week. Nando, he's going to be, he's going to have that big week.
Why is that? I'm wondering why. Like, what goes
because
into
they're taking shots.
Right.
Listen, everyone's throwing all over the Cardinals defense. And we saw last week Kenny Pickett taking shots to him downfield. And there's no reason to not think that he's going to get the opportunity to get a couple of shots downfield. Okay. I also am worried about Deontay Johnson, even though you got to keep starting Deontay Johnson. But after what he did last week, that's going to come up on film in practice, in the meeting rooms this week, about how he just took that play off when they fumbled, he wasn't blocking on the play. That doesn't go over well in the locker room. So I could see Pickens being the receiver that gets rewarded this week, and I do worry about Deontay Johnson, and he dropped that touchdown too. But yeah, for me, I would play Pickens over Deontay Johnson going forward. But I have higher expectations. It's just Kenny Pickett's just not good, man. If I asked you,
like maybe he is good.
Yeah, well, listen, he looked a lot better last week than he did all season long. So hopefully the change in coordinator, works out for them. But if I told you to tell me Kenny Pickett's touchdown to interception stats this year, what would you tell me?
Your guessing games don't make any sense. Let's say 14.
I know, just because your guesses are so bad. It's like you don't even watch football. I don't. 14 touchdowns. I know.
I'm watching Christmas movies.
You know that Kenny Pickett has 6 touchdown passes this year?
Yeah, he hasn't thrown a touchdown since week 9.
It's week 13, and he's got 6 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. That's like 2 weeks.
Well, my ratio guess is like a good close.
Well, I mean, you more than
doubled
his touchdown.
Each one, yeah.
You more than doubled.
I said 14 to 6. He was 4 to 6.
Okay.
Which is, 8 to 12.
Terrible guess.
I don't think so. 12 to 18. I was just a little bit off. 12 to 18. You asked for the ratio, not the number.
Yeah.
12 to 18, I guess 14 to 16. I'd say that's pretty darn close, friend.
It's another big problem this week as we go into week 13. By Mageddon number 2. Nando.
E. coli.
Yeah, that too. But, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen managers, right?
Yeah.
Think about the setup. If you're a Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen manager, on your fantasy teams, this is twofold, Nando, because you went into the season knowing you had an elite top 5 drafted quarterback, right? Which both of these 2 quarterbacks were. And their bye week was week 13. So in those positions, if you drafted an Allen or a Lamar Jackson and even a Jalin Hyatt or Pat Mahomes, those are the quarterbacks you don't back up on most of your fantasy teams, because why eat up the extra spot? You're not starting any other quarterback over them, right? And their bye week, you don't have to worry about. Maybe if like one of these guys had a bye week in week 7 or 8, you're drafting a backup quarterback because all right, at some point in October, I have to do that. But for a lot of my Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen teams, I never carried an extra quarterback, and I was lucky enough that the 2 of them stayed healthy, and I didn't have to worry about it. But now as time has gone on, Nando, and we've gotten into weeks 10, 11, with so many injuries at the quarterback position and so many scrubs coming in to take over offenses, bad quarterback play, fantasy managers started panicking, even with their healthy quarterbacks. Okay. So they started going to the waiver wire and putting a second quarterback on their teams, or maybe even a third. Okay. In all my high stakes leagues, Nando, if you look at everyone's roster, everyone has 3 quarterbacks, or if you have like one really good starter, they still have a second quarterback, because everyone's worried about their quarterback going down, getting hurt, and then them having to hit the waiver wire. Okay. But back to my original point here. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen owners, we've been cruising knowing, all right, set it and forget it every week. And now we look up, and in the last week or 2, we're like, oh, man, okay, there's nothing on the waiver wire. So we've been pushing it aside pretty much, okay? Right. I'm not going to go pick up.
That makes sense. That's strategic, right? Like, sure. Why waste a week of a backup running back if you still have the same scrubs to pick from in 2 weeks?
Yeah. But now here we are in week 13, and now you have to go pick up somebody to fill in for your Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in a critical week 13. There's nothing there.
There's Jake Browning.
There's Jake Browning. That's literally who you're choosing from.
He can run though.
Or whoever the quarterback situation is in Cleveland. But it's tough, man. What are you going to do? You're going to go pick up Tim Boyle? It's pretty crazy. So I have one league where I'm trying to pick up a quarterback tonight on a Lamar Jackson owned team. And those are my options. Desmond Ridder is another one. But what sucks is I had my eyes on Desmond Ridder. He was available, And I don't want to start Desmond Ridder in New York against that Jets defense.
Right.
That's got like 6 fantasy points written all over it. So these are the options in tough competitive leagues for the Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen owner is going to the waiver wire, picking up one of these 3 or 4 scrubby quarterbacks. And it just shows that in a year like this, you really need to back up your quarterbacks early and stash them. But with all the injuries, you're really scrambling.
I feel like Jake Browning, I think maybe like that, you give him a pass a little bit as he gets a little more comfortable. They figure out, they tweak a little bit. I think he's going to have a good week. I think he's going to have a good finish, actually. I just want to see something. Yeah.
Jake Browning. I mean, listen, I'm definitely worried about him this week on Monday Night Football in Jacksonville. I would be worried.
Jacksonville.
Hopefully,
what's that word
Jacksonville
you said last
gets
week?
up.
The frigacy.
What? What are you saying? Did you freeze?
No, you did.
Okay. I don't know what you're talking about, but listen, not only those two, but Justin Fields is on a bye. So now it's 3 big time top 12 fantasy quarterbacks that you're playing every week, and they're all on buys. So
yeah.
Tough.
Donet's got the right
tough
idea.
sledding.
Start Bryce
Young.
I think they're going to make an effort. I think.
Nando, I'll tell you what, that's not even a bad call. Bryce Young obviously has had a terrible year and it's a struggle, but he's one of the 4 quarterbacks that it's available on the waiver wire to pick up, plug and play. And this Tampa defense, it has not looked good. Everyone's throwing against them. And, if you gave me those, available quarterbacks between Browning and the guys that we just mentioned, I might have to lean Bryce Young and hope that he gives me 15 fantasy points, throws 1 touchdown. But that Carolina offense has nothing available for him. They really did the kid a disservice.
Well, that's it. Like if he had like a Robert Woods, just sitting in that, and you're like, oh, well, they've underutilized this talented receiver. But they don't have any talented receivers that he's, you know what I mean? Like there's not like, oh, well, now, there's a new sheriff in town.
DJ Chark never really, and DJ Chark never happened. I thought he would be a nice piece for the kid. Thielen has now fallen off, which you had to expect as an older veteran receiver. He got off to the great start the first 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season. Now he's starting to fade off a little bit as teams focus in on him. They don't have a tight end to really help him out. Hayden Hurst never came on. Tommy Tremble's doing a little something here and there. No run game to establish. It's just not a fair it's just not fair. You hear all the talk, and the owner Tepper is an absolute clown. He's out of his element.
I don't know if he is, man.
Listen, he's a billion. Listen, you can't call a guy that's a billionaire a clown, I guess. But football-wise, he's in over his head, in my opinion. But look what the Texans did. The comparison is all C.J. Stroud versus Young, and I get it because Carolina had the choice of these two, and C.J. Stroud is rookie of the year and playing unbelievable and looks great every week, and it's like, you took Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud, but it's not fair because look at all the weapons you provided C.J. Stroud and the offense that you put him in compared to Bryce Young, So they just got to go and get Bryce Young some weapons in the offseason. And what's crazy is they have the first overall pick, which is the Bears pick. And, they could have if they didn't trade that pick and have the one. They could have gave him Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to be an all-time wide receiver with the first pick. That would have been a start, but the Bears have that pick.
Man, that's crazy.
It is.
But what do you do,
Nando?
Chris, right?
What do you do? Listen, before we get out of here, I know time is short, but we got to touch on that Eagles 49ers game this Sunday, NFC game of the year. I'm looking forward to this game big time. I have for a couple weeks now. It's an NFC championship game preview. These two teams are clear head and above the rest of the NFC. So this is pretty much round one in in the NFC Championship game preview. On a betting front, Nando, the 49ers are going to go into Philadelphia and kick their ass. Okay. Vegas has the same. This is crazy because I was talking about this with my friends leading into last week's game.
Your other friends?
I was like, yeah, not you. And I said, if I'm Vegas, 49ers should be favored in this game.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, it's crazy. When you think about it, you have the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles at home, and they're underdogs to the 8-3 road 49ers. That's Vegas pretty much begging you to take the Eagles in this game. It's going to be the Niners. They're going to go in there, and they're going to beat up the Eagles. They're catching them at the right time. They're a little banged up on the offensive line. And the 49ers, they're going to take advantage of them. I think Deebo Samuel can have another big game, back-to-back big games. Him and George Kittle over the middle against this Eagles secondary.
Oh, does that rhyme? Yeah. All right, I'll go with you. I'll put a bet down right now for you. Where do you want to move the line? How would you like to tease this?
Yeah, tease it. Here we go. Aren't you sick of using the same corny joke every week, Nando? Can't you get original?
Yeah, I am.
Good.
No,
but the Niners are 2.5. The Niners are 2.5 point favorites in Philadelphia. And I think that's, the sign right there. That's going to be my money's on the 49ers, Nando. I've been preaching it for a while now, that the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC. And that's the way I see it. This Eagles offense, it's crazy to say, but I still
that's a pretty, you put yourself out there.
I mean, whatever. I don't know if you're joking or not, but my money is I've placed a fairly significant high bet on the Niners this week. That's all I can say. So follow me, tail me if it loses.
Well, why don't you tell us how much?
Give me all the hate. No, I won't do that. That's stupid. Listen, on the Eagles side though, Nando, this offense still doesn't look.
Wait, hold on. I gotta move this line a little bit.
Do that off the air, Nando. Nobody cares about you moving your line on air during the show. This Eagles offense,
I think people care. 49ers minus 10 will give you plus 280.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. You were saying? Go ahead. I was waiting for you.
That's all.
Come on, man. Hurry up or I'll play that oof sound again.
Do you, Nino, do you guys prefer Cooper Kupp or Christian Kirk rest of the season? That's not bad, man. That's tough. Cooper Kupp just is another veteran wide receiver right now that is just struggling to get over these injuries. And early in the game last week, he caught a ball. He went down, and you could see him, struggling to get up. It looked like he re-injured his lower his ankle, lower leg, or something like that. I just don't think he's right. So in this Jacksonville offense, I'd actually rather have Christian Kirk.
I just bet $10 on the Eagles.
Wow.
No, I'm just
kidding.
Hope
you win.
I did the 49ers minus 9.5 for you.
It's
only plus 250. It doesn't really, you think you're going out on a limb like that. To be like, this team is going to crush this home team with a much better record. But
no, I like that. I actually think the Niners win this game by 10 plus points. So
yeah,
that's good. Plus 250.
That's not, to me, that's not exciting. Like, all right, we'll do it $35. That's great. I get 2 sandwiches, or I could save my $10 and invest it wisely in stocks and bonds.
Oof. You're just not a gambler, Nando. That's all I could say. It's not.
I am. I just have a certain brand of gambling.
Yes.
I gamble every time you say you're going to come on with Wi-Fi.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, we got to go.
Awesome.
You're angry. It's the best time to leave.
Sounds good. I wish everybody a good luck. Week 13. We'll check you back next week.
That oof sound effect is something else, huh? Hold on, let me play the song. Hold on one second. Where's the song? Just to say a couple more things.